There's a tree farm on the south side of Thunder Bay where near where we used to live, where I would often go for a run. It was close enough to the house that it made it super convenient to go to. It was far enough away. We don't need sound on this video. Sorry, guys. I literally filmed it because of how much I love this place. As you saw, spot through the fence, you could duck in and like literally just a few feet in and you're like in a whole nother world. The noise from the road kind of disappears, the silence and the snow. And, if you keep going down the path, sometimes you'd hear or see something in a corner of your eye and a flock of deer would be running away from you. Magical place. There was parts of it that were forest, like you see here. There were other parts that were kind of like a new planting. So what does that mean? You could see farther. You could feel the sun on your face. There were actually spots along the trail during the right season where you ran by raspberry bushes and blueberry bushes. I got a picture of Shiloh, of course. He's got his eye on the prize. He would always stop and fill up his hands before catching up with me. I love this place. Didn't matter what season, summertime, wintertime, it was always perfect. The whole loop would sort of zig and zag a little bit, so I would go twice around. If I had 5 miles to get in, I would go more than that if I needed more than that, if you know what I mean. And sometimes I needed more than that. It's amazing how the place you go to sweat and suffer a little bit can be the same place that you go to find clarity or when you really need to experience a little bit of peace. You have a place like that? Places where you go when you need to find peace, when you need to fill your cup, as it were. Well, Jesus did, and today we're going to talk about it. Call it the Garden of Gethsemane. But then it was more a stretch of path on the western side of the Mount of Olives. There were ancient olive trees. Olive trees, if you don't know, can grow to hundreds, and I mean hundreds of years old. I think there is presently in the Garden of Gethsemane an olive tree that's like 900 years old. Like they can be really old. They like sandy soil conditions, rocks. Other trees would languish and not survive, but this is a place where olive trees actually thrive. And Jesus had walked this path like I want to say dozens, but it could have been hundreds of times. Why? Because it went from the old city through Gethsemane towards Bethany. If you remember from Bethany, Mary and Martha and Lazarus, like some of Jesus' very best friends lived there. So he would find himself on this path over and over again. And you may not know this, and so I'll tell you. When you walk or run a path enough times, you pick favorites. You know what I'm talking about? Like trees and rocks. There are some trees and rocks that become favorites. You look forward to seeing them more than all of the other forest around you. Some of them are places, I suppose, where you stop to fuel, or you stop to sit, or you stop to pray. Some of them just for the hope that they give you when you finally get to that rock and you know that maybe you're only a few minutes from the car in the parking lot. Yeah, on some days when it's hard, those things are a little bit of hope that you know you're going to get through it. So, I don't know this for certain, but I'm pretty sure that Jesus had favorites. Why would I say that? Matthew chapter 26 names a spot where Jesus left his disciples, and then going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and he prayed. This is just a theory. I think that was one of his spots. I do. In fact, the Church of All Nations in Israel is kind of convinced that it has found this spot. They call it the Rock of Agony. Yeah, maybe not surprisingly, pilgrims actually still love to go to places like that. Places where you go when your heart is breaking, to look for peace, to fill your cup if you're lucky to meet with God. And Gethsemane is one of those spots. My tree farm for me in Thunder Bay was absolutely one of those spots. A couple of years ago, we went to a wedding in Thunder Bay, and I had to go back to my tree farm to go and see all of my favorite trees. I don't know, like it's one of those things. It might not make any sense to you, but if you know, you know. Gethsemane was one of those spots for Jesus. Gethsemane, if you don't know, literally means olive or oil press. It's the place where olives are put and then pressured or pressed, or even to the point they feel crushed until the last drop of the good stuff is squeezed out of them. And I hope you've got a place like that. I do, because every one of us will experience moments like that. Gethsemane moments. Some of you might even be in a Gethsemane moment right now. Well, Jesus had one too. And there's a lot that we can learn from watching Jesus in the garden that can help us to walk through moments like that of our own that we experience. Like I said, for the last number of weeks, we've been working our way through a series of messages called 8 Days, the last 8 days of Jesus' life, from Palm Sunday to Resurrection Sunday, which Murray said we will be celebrating together here next weekend, Friday, Good Friday, Sunday. I hope you will all come back. I hope you'll all bring a friend with you. And this morning we're back in Mark chapter 14. This is the time, if you have your Bible, or if you'd like, follow along in the Bible app. My notes are there. Mark chapter 14, starting verse 26 says, "When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives." This is a serious message today, folks. Verse 27 says, "You will fall away," Jesus told them, "for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." And Peter declared, "Even if all fall away, I will not." "Truly, truly," Jesus answered. You remember from last week? "Truly, truly, I tell you, yes, tonight, before the cock crows twice, you will disown me 3 times. Peter insisted emphatically, it says, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all of the others were like, "Yeah, us too." After that, they went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he said. "Stay here and keep watch." This is the Mark version of that Matthew text. Going a little farther, he fell to the ground, and he prayed that, if possible, the hour might pass from him. "Abba, Father," he said, "everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, but not what I will, but what you will." And then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Simon," he said, "Peter, are you asleep? Couldn't you keep watch for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." And once more he went away and he prayed the same thing. And when he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. They did not know what to say to him. Returning the 3rd time, he said to them, "Are you still sleeping, resting? Enough, the hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is delivered into the hand of sinners. Rise, let's go. Here comes my betrayer." One of the great mysteries of Lent. Lent is the season of 40 days leading up to Easter. It's a season of preparation, it's called. What's interesting is that through practices like prayer and reflection and fasting, or other kinds of self-denials of various kinds, Lent actually prepares us to enter into the suffering of Christ in a deeper way. And you're thinking, "Daryl, why would anyone want to do that? Why would anyone want to enter the suffering of Jesus?" It's like olive oil, right? You don't get to the good stuff without the pressing. Even when it feels sometimes like it's crushing you, that pressure, that's the good stuff. There are things, friends, that you can only learn about God from suffering. And Gethsemane reminds us that Jesus entered ours. He embraced our weaknesses and our pain. The theological word we use is that he stooped down to enter the human condition before we ever thought to share, or before we were ever interested in that fellowship of sharing in the suffering of Christ, like Paul says. He had already chosen to share in ours. It reminds me of Isaiah 53, the suffering servant text. It says, "It was our weaknesses that he carried, our sorrows that weighed him down." In Christ, God stooped down to enter the human condition, not just part, but to the full human condition. Hebrews 4:15 says it this way, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize or to feel sympathy for our weakness, but we have one who's been tempted in every way just as we are." What does that mean? Jesus being compared to the high priest. Jesus is our mediator who represents us before God, like the high priest did for the nation of Israel. And to do that well, to do that at all, he must know intimately our weaknesses and our need. And he does. Jesus does. He knows our weaknesses and our need, like all of them, physical and otherwise, all of our vulnerabilities, all of our pain and suffering, all that we have ever gone through, that we've ever experienced, Jesus understands intimately. Actually learned this week as I was preparing, the Greek word translated here as sympathy or to sympathize literally means to suffer with. Yeah, to co-suffer. I know you know this. Having someone show up for you in your suffering, right? On days where your weaknesses or your vulnerabilities just feel so exposed, can be one of the most amazing experiences ever. It really can. Having someone show up for you. When I was 16 years old, I've shared this story before. I was at the cottage with my friend Andy, and we got the phone call that one of our best friends, Rial, had been killed in a car accident. Horrible phone call. Horrible. 2 minutes later, we got another phone call that Mark and Sean had been in the car with him. Now, it's okay. They were both fine. They were both fine. It was Rial who was dead. But, this rattles you, especially when you're 16 years old, I'm telling you. So we drove home that that afternoon, obviously. And then that night, we went to Mark's house. When I got there, I was surprised to find that it was kind of full of all these people that I didn't really know. It was Mark's whole youth group had shown up just to be with us, and they brought food. And I was amazed that all of these people who I didn't feel like I knew all of our best mates would be together that night. We were already processing the fact that if we had been there the night before, all of us would have been in that car together, because that's how it worked. I was amazed that people would come to be with us, would show up for this like this. Because I probably don't have to say this, but losing one of your best mates in high school sucks. It sucks. But I didn't have to go through it alone. I did, never once. And just like all of you, I have had to experience some moments of loss in my life, even moments I would call genuine heartbreak and suffering. But so many of those experiences were transformed by the people who showed up to co-suffer, right? To suffer with me. Daryl, you being dramatic, transformed. Listen, it's more than that. These experiences became sacramental to me. What does that mean? These became experiences through which I actually encountered God. That's what sacramental means. Mark's youth group is part of the reason I decided to give my life to Jesus. I encountered Jesus when they showed up, just by them showing up. When Eric Long flew from Thunder Bay to show up at my dad's funeral, I didn't know he was coming, and a tiny little country church in Woodburn, Ontario, in a horrible moment in my life, and all of a sudden Eric pops through the door. That's incredible. Knowing that the staff team, the night Leah died and I was at the hospital with her parents, knowing the staff team had all dropped everything that they were doing and showed up at my house to wait with Luana and with my kids. The week after that, when I was back at work like a moron, because you don't rush back to work after something like this happens. You don't put your head down and do something stupid like that. But my first day back to work, I got a phone call across the building at Paul's office. And so I hang up the phone and walk from my office to Paul's office. He had borrowed a dummy from the Red Cross because I told them how terrible a feeling it is when you realize that the only CPR you know is what you've seen other people performing on TV shows. And so Paul, like I've said, is a former ER nurse, and he borrowed this dummy because he was going to teach me CPR. Yeah, he made me practice on the dummy in our office. He made me sing along, right? Whether a mother, whether your brother, you say. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. I'm just saying, friends, you need friends like that. And the point of this is not the suffering. It's the sympathy. It's the sympathy. It's the co-suffering. The people who showed up, to get me through whom I experienced the presence of Jesus with me in those hard times. I have 100 of those stories. What is the point? We do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness. We have one who has been tempted in every way. That word tempted means taught by trial. Just like the rest of us. Yeah, Jesus learned obedience through suffering. He was taught by trial, just like the rest of us. That's why he is such a great high priest. That's why he's such a good Savior. Because there are some things about God that you can only learn from suffering. Good stuff that you only get to from pressure, even if it feels at that moment that the pressure is going to crush you. I can tell you that he is an ever-present help in times of trouble. You may not know that, but I do, and I've had to learn it the hard way. I had to learn it the only way anyone ever learns it. Through that, there are some things about God that you can only learn at Gethsemane. That's the point. At Gethsemane, it's a place we all have to go. Verse 32 says they went to a place called Gethsemane, the olive press, the oil press. And Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took those closest to him, Peter, James, and John, along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." He said to them, "Stay here and keep watch." Jesus didn't just feel, he wasn't just familiar with pain and suffering. Jesus actually named exactly what he felt. Don't miss that. He says he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. Like Jesus didn't stuff it down, right? He didn't mask it or hide it. He told his friends exactly what he was feeling. Who are we talking about? Jesus. This is the same Jesus who walked on water, right? Who slept through the storm. Jesus who commanded the wind and the waves, and the wind and the waves obeyed. He said, "Peace, be still." That's who we're talking about it. And in this moment, he confesses to his friends that he was having a hard time keeping his head above water. Jesus said, I feel like I'm sinking a little bit here. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Have you ever felt overwhelmed? Yeah. It took a lot. Jesus has too. Don't miss that. Jesus has too. What do you do when you're overwhelmed? He called out to his Father with an Aramaic word, which is interesting because Mark is writing in Greek, not Aramaic. It's a word that you're probably familiar with, Abba. It's the familiar or intimate form of father, daddy, or papa. I used to call my dad Pops. Hey, Pops. How you feeling today, Pops? It's used by both children and adults, just so you know. This wasn't a reversion to like childhood or anything. Children and adults. It's intimate. It's Pop. Love you, Dad. It's kind of like what we pray 1,000 times in our lives. When something's going on, who do we call? We call Dad, and we cry out for help. That's what's going on in this scene. Jesus prays to his dad. He prays that this hour might pass from him, that this cup might be removed. Like, this is not polished, it's anything but composed. This is one of those moments we see Jesus at his most raw self, the kind of prayer that we only pray in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. when we're awake or awake again, and we're overwhelmed with the stress of whatever it is that we're having to face, or through sweat and tears when you're out on the trail and you think that only God can hear you. That's what the prayer that you pray. Just in case you need to hear this out loud, honest, desperate prayer is not a sign of weak faith. It's not. Like, sometimes it's the only thing that there is that's going to get you through whatever it is that you're going through. It's the only path that you can take. I am so grateful for the honesty of Gethsemane. Jesus prayed for a way out, then continued walking through. To get through Gethsemane, you have to be honest with God. If you're taking notes, that's the first one. Write that down. To get through Gethsemane, you have to be honest to God. Jesus didn't just spout what was expected. He didn't concoct some religious prayer based on some ancient traditional prayer language, whatever. He just bled, right? He just vented in front of God. He just asked for what he wanted. If possible, that this hour might pass from me. In fact, this is how we know that Jesus knew. His whole life had been leading up to that moment. When he says that this hour, the hour refers to the full weight of what was coming, not just the betrayal and the abandonment by Judas and Peter. That's real, but not just that. Not just that his disciples, come on guys, you're sleeping through one of the moments that Jesus most needed them to show up for him. Jesus knew the arrest was coming, probably the torture, suffering, and absolutely the death. Abba, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me. In the scriptures, you're probably thinking about the same verses I am. The cup is a metaphor, an idiom, referring to the allotted portion in this season of life. Psalm 16, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. Psalm 23, very familiar to most of you. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. It's a way of saying, God, things are so good right now. My cup is overflowing. Isaiah 51, Jerusalem has drunk from the hand of the Lord the cup of his wrath, pointing to this exile that was looming on the horizon, and that was no doubt a judgment from God. And here Jesus prays, if there's any other way, take this cup from me. Take this cup from me. Friends, Gethsemane is no time for pretending, no time for putting on a brave face. It's time to pray for what you need. Like, I hope you don't need me to coach you through heartache. But some of you maybe are going through some of the first heartache you've been through since you gave your life to Jesus, and you think that you have to do it differently. I just want you to do it honestly. It's okay to do it honestly as a follower of Jesus. To cry and confess and bleed and vent and pray and whatever you need to do. Because that's what Gethsemane is about. It's not for pretending, not for putting on a brave face. It's time to pray for what you need. He's saying, if there's any other way to do this, let's do that. Let's do that instead. Yet. Everyone say yet. That wasn't bad. And listen, I get it. You don't have to start here, but you do have to get here. You have to get to yet. Yet not my will, but thine be done. Not what I will, but what you will. And I get it. That's the hardest place to get to when you're in the middle of it. You're like, nope, not this time, God. Not what you will, what I will this time, God. I need you to get me out of this. But I do want you to notice that Jesus didn't skip to surrender. Like I said, as a follower of Jesus, you don't have to skip to that part. You're allowed to bleed first, cry out first. You're allowed to be transparent before God because he knows already, and he's been through the kind of things you are going through. You don't have to skip to the end like we tend to sometimes when we pray. We're like, I know I need to start with adoration, confession, and thanksgiving, and if I do that well, I can sprinkle supplication. You guys heard of the Acts prayer? Adoration, confession. We think there's a right way to do it. I've shared this before. When I got that call from Trina, Leah's mom, asking me to come over because she just found her daughter, I hung up the phone and I said, I'm coming. I said, God, I can't do this. I got nothing right now. This is way past my pay grade. You're allowed to just vent, cry out in horror and terror and heartbreak. You don't have to skip to the end. That's what I'm telling you. As if the first part is somehow a lesser prayer or a lesser form of faith. No, all types of prayer are beautiful and fragrant as an offering of faith. Honest, desperate prayer is not a sign of weak faith. Sometimes it's the only path there is to get through whatever you're going through. And so I want to encourage you that asking or even pleading is not lack of trust. It's honestly the beginning of trust. How do I know? Because we just read it about Jesus' own time in Gethsemane. Besides, you guys have been coming long enough. You know here at Pathway, we believe that following Jesus means bringing your real self into relationship with God. Not the sanitized self, not the spiritualized self, but your real self into relationship with God. And so this is what we see at Gethsemane. Honest Jesus, overwhelmed Jesus, fearful Jesus, submitting himself to the one thing greater than his own fear in that moment without pretending for a second that fear was gone. His love for his Father, listen to this, and his love for you. With his face pressed against this rock of agony, it's like all of a sudden your face and your name came to his mind. And he said, yet not what I will, but what you will. I love that. I love that. I'm so grateful for that. And don't forget that the disciples are asleep at this point. The people who are supposed to watch with him couldn't even stay awake. And we're not being too tough on the disciples. Remember, almost all that Jesus was going through, they were too. They had just been told that there was betrayal and abandonment. They were carrying a heavy weight at that time too. And if you've been through that, you know it can be exhausting. And Jesus said, the heart is willing, but the flesh is weak. Jesus knows. That's what he knows. Sometimes the hardest prayers happen in isolation. That is not abandonment by God. It's just the way the path goes sometimes. So if you're going through a Gethsemane of your own right now, let me just add a couple comments or truths you can take home. This might be how I say, verily, verily, or truly, truly, I'm telling you, because I want your attention for this. Listen to this. First, to the uninitiated, pain or suffering can feel like God is absent or has abandoned you. That is not the case.
Okay, I found this on the web for initiated pain or suffering.
That is not the case either. Siri, you're fired. Oh, now I probably woke her up again. It's good times. It's good times. I hope you're listening as good as Siri on my phone is. I already said I had to learn the hard way that he is an ever-present help in times of trouble. Sometimes you can't see him, and that's hard, but he is always with you, always with you. Second, to the untrained, listen to this, to the weariness that you feel some days when you've had to go through prolonged seasons of struggle, it can make you doubt, right? Or fear that your faith is somehow failing. And so I want to tell you today, that is not what failing feels like. That's what endurance feels like. That's how perseverance is formed. That feeling you feel, don't beat yourself up, because that's not failing, that is endurance. It's the only way it comes. And when the night gets dark enough, I just want you to know, even the saints, the greatest amongst us, sometimes hear voices. Right? You know, if you really trusted God, you'd be at peace right now. Oh, listen. Don't trust those voices. Don't listen to those voices. They lie. And that kind of self-guilt, or the sound of those voices putting guilt or pressure on you, that's the lie that keeps people from praying honestly. They're like, no, this is why I have to pretend I'm going to be okay. The Lord is good. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Praying honestly at the moment is what we need most, right? It's what we need most. Mark chapter 14 shows us a Jesus who's not at peace, and I wanted to point that out. He is not what's that book about being the calm, non-anxious presence, right? Being the non-anxious presence in the room. That's not Jesus. Right now is deeply distressed and troubled. That makes me feel good. Makes me feel okay sometimes when I get deeply distressed and troubled. So he tells his closest friends, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. This is not the man radiating serene acceptance. This is the man in agony in the olive press. And Gethsemane gives us permission to be that sometimes, to be honest to God, honest with God as we follow him. This week, I want to invite you to a bit of a Gethsemane prayer, maybe to practice that, especially if you are going through one of those seasons. If there's a burden that you've been carrying and you're not sure how to pray, be honest. Write down or say aloud what you actually feel about the thing you're carrying. Don't write down what you think you're supposed to feel or how you're supposed to pray. Write down how you're actually feeling. Be honest to God about that thing. Don't start with, I know I should trust you. Start with what's true in the moment. God, I'm not sure I can trust you right now. I'm tired of being God's whipping boy right now. I'm tired of whatever it is, be honest to God about those things. Second, ask directly and boldly. Name what you want God to change. God, if it's up to me, and for a minute, I'd like it to be, this is what I want you to do. God, I need you to change this situation, change that heart, come through. Why? This is not demanding. This is not demanding. God is still God. You don't have to worry about that. God is still God, but it's just treating him as someone who you have an intimate relationship with. Aren't we taught to ask like a kid, to come in faith like a child, to call out to our pops? Say, God, I could really use you to come through for me right now. And this might be the hard part. Number 3, surrender specifically. It's easy to say, not what I will, but what thy will, to borrow that from scriptures, and praying the scriptures is a good practice, but I encourage you to sort of think that through and to say, all right, God, I put my cards out there. This is exactly what I want. But I'm also willing to give that thing to you. I'm still going to love you if you say no. I'm still going to trust you if for some reason you can see why I can't, that this can't happen. Just figure out how to surrender specifically, to release that thing to his will. Not everything in general, just the specific thing you're praying about. And then return again. It's the last part of the Gethsemane prayer. Remember, Jesus prayed 3 times. He prayed and went to his friends, and they were sleeping. So he went back to prayer. Jesus is something. I actually read a book once where they say, if you really had faith, you'd only have to pray once and trust that Jesus, and then you'd walk away, and I don't know that that's how this works. Or at least that Christian's a better Christian than this Christian. Because, If I'm still carrying the burden on Tuesday, I'm praying again on Tuesday. If that burden's still weighing heavy on Wednesday, I'm praying again on Wednesday. That's okay. Gethsemane models that for us, so I encourage you. The point is not to resolve it all at once or to pretend, no, I've said it to God and I can trust it and walk away. Hey, listen, if your faith can meet that for real, Bob's your uncle. Good job. If you're still broken and carrying this burden, if it's still breaking your heart, just go back. Keep going. Don't stop. Persevere. Be that persistent widow, that persistent prayer. And then the last part, which I don't want you to miss. Let me challenge you to share your Gethsemane prayer with someone. Say, I just wanted to let you know this is the burden that I've been carrying. This is something that's been weighing heavy on me, and I'm praying. Why? Because Jesus did. He brought his disciples with them. He pulled them into the heartbreak. He knew he shouldn't be alone that night. We're not made to carry the heaviest stuff alone. And like I said earlier, you might be going through a Gethsemane of your own right now. And here at Pathway, we want to be the kind of community where the hardest prayers are some of the most welcome ones. We're not going to be disappointed when we see you falling apart. We're going to pull you in so you don't have to fall apart on your own. Because we've all fallen apart too. Someone in crisis doesn't have to pretend or perform peace to belong. That's not who we are. We want to be more real than that. Where Jesus says, get me out of this. We think that's actually the beginning of a conversation with God and not the end of faith. So I want to encourage you, share it with someone. Share it with us if you need to. Call up Shane or myself if you want to, if that helps you. We'd love to pray and walk with you. And this is all what the garden makes possible. It's where Jesus showed us what honest faith looks like when the night is at its absolute worst. And listen, I know at every stage in the journey we could say this, but I think Gethsemane was a turning point for Jesus. Because after Gethsemane, remember, there's very little else that Jesus needs to say. Why? Because he's already made his choice. Everything that follows for the rest of Holy Week is obedience, and it's endurance, and it's Jesus just leaving the consequences of that obedience and that trust to the God who is holding him. Let's pray.